Welcome to Staying Connected, a podcast where I talk to people about their stories with VEDS, Marfan, Loeys-Dietz, and related vascular and aortic connective tissue conditions. This is your host, Katie, and before we get into the show, I want to remind you that the views, information, and opinions in this podcast are those of the individuals involved, and the information presented does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. Any opinions that I express in this podcast are my own and not of my employer. Welcome back. On the last episode, we talked to Allison Pullins, whose son James has Marfan syndrome. On today's episode, we're talking to my one and only brother and my favorite brother, Jacob Frederick, about his experience with my diagnosis of VEDS. This interview was recorded a couple weeks before my recent hospitalization, so in this interview, we don't talk about that, but we will likely be doing another interview together later on to discuss that and more. Don't forget, if you like this show, share it with people you know on social media and help us raise awareness of VEDS, Marfan, and Loeys-Dietz. And you can always support the show by joining my Patreon. My Patreon supporters make it possible for me to continue to produce this podcast, and you can join for only a few dollars a month. But however you support this show, thank you. Let's get into the show. Jake, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Jake. I ate butter as an infant, and now that's what's wrong with me.
Are we really bringing the butter into this episode? Can we just not?
Well, I think it's a piece of great family history. Well, I was thinking about this. Okay, how do I introduce myself onto your podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Because we know that as soon as this podcast goes live, the podcast, it becomes about me, right? It's no longer staying connected with Caitlin, right? It's staying connected with Jake. So, this is my debut, right? How do I introduce myself? And then I thought, there's a lot wrong with me. Where does it start? And it starts
because that's what this podcast is about.
Well, you're introducing.
And then you're like, it starts with butter.
It starts with butter. It must start with butter. Let's start at the beginning.
Oh my God. I love you so much. It's hilarious. So seriously, let's get serious for a second for this introduction.
All right.
Okay. So I'm really glad that you're coming onto the podcast as my brother. I'm very honored to have you on the show sharing your experience with VEDS and Vascular Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. I think our listeners only know you primarily from the stories of my diagnosis, with you making the joke about the veins and that prompting this thing for me to go look. So before we get into that story, do you want to introduce yourself and say hi to everybody?
I'm going to have a really hard time keeping it together.
Okay, that's okay.
Both from keeping it real, like, okay, let's have a mellow conversation, podcast style, put on our podcast voice, and probably shed some tears in this one because there's some shit we got to talk about. In terms of real introduction, I really don't know. I'm Jake. I'm your brother, right? I think that's pretty much it. There's a lot wrong with me.
And it starts with butter.
It starts with butter, yeah. How would you introduce me?
I would introduce you as my brother. You are a year and a half younger than me or so. Mm-hmm. And you live on a farm with chickens and 2 geese.
Farm is a little bit of an overstatement, yeah.
And a cat, yeah. So not quite a farm. Country land, maybe. Mm-hmm. Married to one of my best friends. And you've been in my life for as long as I can remember.
I've been in your life for a year and a half, less than you've been alive.
Right, which is as long as I can remember.
Oh, that's true, yeah. So is that an intro? Or can we just use that?
I don't know. Yeah, we could use that, totally. So, where do you want to start?
Well, I had a disclaimer.
Oh, no.
that I wanted to start with, and that you're welcome to use this as well.
Okay. Go ahead.
A couple of disclaimers. First, let's talk about the sharks. Memories are fallible and easily constructed, and easily your brain creates memories. And so when you and I dive into the history of whatever we talk about, right? Because I want to talk about us. I want to talk about the brotherly experience with a sister that, is fragile and then has an identifiable something. And along the way, I think we're going to remember different things. We're going to have different memories. And I think that's totally fine. We're going to have different memories from our family too. That's totally fine. Everyone is going to remember something their own way or remember something that no one else remembers, and that's okay. So, disclaimer, if you're listening and you know a story that we're going to tell and you remember it differently, that doesn't make you wrong, and it doesn't make us wrong. It just means that we'll never know the truth. The real truth.
Yeah, that's a good disclaimer.
The other disclaimer, well, I won't pull that disclaimer out yet. I'll say that one later. That's an important disclaimer for later.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm on the edge of my seat here waiting for whatever that disclaimer is and whenever it comes into our conversation.
Yes. Staying connected with disclaimers. How do we do this podcast?
I have no idea because we're just going to keep laughing at each other.
Yep. Put it in.
It's great. It's great, though. So I think that we should start at that diagnosis story.
Okay. You tell it.
Okay. So I think a lot of people listening know my diagnosis story, but I had basically like a year of really bad neck pain, unexplainable, ERs, didn't notice anything, PCPs, everybody. And my PCP was going to send me to a vascular surgeon to get a scan for thoracic outlet syndrome to see if I had a compressed artery. And I had lunch with you, I think it was like the Sunday before that appointment with the vascular surgeon. And I told you they were going to do that. And I remember you making a joke about, well, they won't even have to, scan anything because they can see all your veins. And that comment is what ultimately prompted this, like, what else about me has been there forever rather than an autoimmune kind of thing that I was always thinking about throughout my life. And I went home that night, pulled out my medical records, and kind of started the deep dive and found VEDS. So I find you somewhat responsible for that discovery.
You're welcome.
In some ways. Yeah.
You're
what was
very
that
welcome.
like for you?
What was that like for me?
Yeah.
That's a hard one. So you were diagnosed in a period of time in my life when work was my primary focus. And so I'm the type of animal that is an ostrich. Although it's not totally true that ostriches hide their head in the sands when they're fearful. It's actually to check the temperature of the eggs. I'll use the analogy. I don't want to look at something that's bad. I avoid bad. And so when you were diagnosed, my immediate reaction was, holy crap, I have to work more. I think I got promoted because you got diagnosed, right?
Wow. You're welcome.
Thank you. So you're welcome for the diagnosis, and I'm welcome for the promotion.
Yeah.
The importance of siblings.
That's right. So continue.
So I didn't know. This is a complicated question because I think some of our family culture is ignore and make fun of, I'd say, right? Let's ignore what possibly could be underlying root cause and just simply like make fun of it.
Yeah.
Right. Because humor is better than reality. Right. Which is why we laughed for the first 20 minutes of this interview. So it wasn't just like, oh, Katie has vascular Ehlers-Danlos. I immediately know what that means. And I immediately understand all of childhood. Right.
Right.
And I don't think it was even until recently, like the last few weeks, when I started to listen to your episodes, that it even more became like, okay, I'm starting to understand this, right? And you were director of blah 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 at the Marfan Foundation, right? And so I don't know what it was. Community, right? Director of community.
The VEDS movement.
Director of the VEDS movement at the Marfan Foundation.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow. Big title. And even then, like, I didn't understand. I avoided it. Right.
Yeah.
Because like put the head in the sand, turn away, don't look at it. Right. And I think a few things along the way have made it really challenging to look away. You know, the first time that you landed in the hospital because your legs didn't work or something, that was like, oh, you know, I can't make a joke about this. That means that I'm still ignorant. Something's going on. And then you landed in the hospital again for migraines or something, right?
It was TIAs, yeah.
TIAs, yeah. And again, I was like, okay, I can't make a joke about this. It's very obvious. There's something wrong with my sister, right? And that's the hardest part for me to get to. A whole bunch of denial to accept there's something wrong with my sister. And then your artery to your spleen perforated, exploded.
Yeah, spleen ruptured.
Spleen ruptured. Tore. Was it? Yeah. Was it the artery or was it the spleen?
It was the spleen, but they used a coil to block off the splenic artery so that the spleen wouldn't have blood to bleed.
You got a dead organ in you, girl.
Well, it survived.
Did it?
Yeah. So other arteries came through and built themselves. They're called collateral vessels. So my body built collateral vessels to that part of the spleen, and the whole thing survived, which was not expected.
Wow. Yeah. So you have an issue staying connected, but your body will build new stuff.
Yeah,
this is a real shitty genetic disorder.
It is.
It sounds like your body's deciding to not build new arteries.
That's an interesting, right. So like your body's not like, oh, these are wrong, I'm going to build new ones.
Right.
Right. Well, I mean, even the new ones it built might be at risk later.
So question about, is a surgery for this getting rid of all your existing arteries and your body builds new ones?
Your body still builds the same
type of tissue.
Wrong ones. Yeah.
All right. Yep. Well, that's a shame.
It's all your body knows how to build.
I'm not a doctor.
No. So let's go back to this. So these experiences made it really obvious there was something wrong.
These experiences made it obvious that there was something really wrong. So I think one of the ways that you can describe having a sibling, how it feels to have a sibling with a connective tissue disorder, is during your spleen rupture, like tensions are high, right? And when you have someone that you love in the hospital and tensions are so high and everyone is so stressed out, and then you have to figure out vehicle logistics and COVID logistics and food logistics and clothing logistics and communication logistics and like all of these logistics, and then hospital visiting hour logistics. It's like, yo, okay, we need a little bit to chill, but everyone's emotions are super high. And so I remember my wife and I had a little tiff because everyone's stressed, right?
Yeah.
And I remember like busting into the bathroom because I'm stressed out, right? And my wife is using the bathroom and we start, tiffing. And then I took a second and I just exploded in not the like yelling way, but like all I could say, and it wasn't even like good words. It was just, I'm so scared, because you never want to lose your sister, right? It was just such a hard time. There's nothing you can do about it. Your sister's in the hospital. They're going to try something, but her body's not being held together correctly. And it's just, even today, I'm so scared, right? You could call me tomorrow and say, hey, you know what? My colon ruptured. Like, shit. Okay, like it's go time, right? It's serious time.
Yeah.
And as a sibling, I mean, this is your mortality, right? And so you have to deal with this. And then I have to deal with it a different way. I have to deal with the fear and the loss and whatever happens, right, afterwards as well. And it's not to say that yours is worse than mine or mine's worse than yours or whatever, right? It's just, it sucks. Overall, it sucks. So a lot of days I'm like, well, you know what? think I might work a little harder today. I don't want to feel these feelings, right? I just want to work harder. And so, yeah, I mean, that's what it's like to have a sibling with a connective tissue disorder is, we are shake and bake, right? We've always been shake and bake. And if one of us is no longer here, either the chicken's going to be raw or the chicken's going to be unseasoned. Just shooken or just baconed. And there you go. That's it. That's the answer to the question.
That's it. Yeah, that is. So I have to say, for the last few years, even though I knew that to an extent your head was in the sand, like especially early on, you were also like incredibly supportive during all of this.
It's fake.
Do you recognize that? It's fake?
Oh, yeah. It's all fake. You know what it is? It's acting. I'm I'm just phenomenal at everything. And one of those things is acting.
So for our listeners, you have a great sense of humor.
Oh, okay.
I wish they could see your face because it's a sarcasm.
Put the video up.
Yeah, I guess so. No, but I mean, seriously though, so I remember like when I had that first hospital stay after my diagnosis, I think that you're talking about was the first TIA when I had, my left leg didn't work and my right arm wasn't proper and couldn't see. And I called you from I was waiting for the ambulance. And it was funny because I called you, I called mom and I called you and I called a friend. And I think during my call to you, the ambulance was arriving outside. And so what I understood from you later was that the voicemail that I left for you was cut off. And it was like, hey, Jake, something happened. The ambulance is here. I gotta go. And that was your first time with me in the hospital, really.
I mean, it's been both times. Hey, Jake, just want to let you know something is happening or has happened. The ambulance is here. Yeah. Click. And I think that's pretty much the case when anyone that goes to the hospital, right? Yeah. It's very much, hey, I'm going to go to the hospital because of XYZ, and then radio silence for a couple of hours. Mm-hmm. Oh crap! What's going on? And then you find out, oh yeah, I'm chilling. Everything is fine, maybe.
Yeah. So during that first experience, though, I mean, you have a really kind of like calm and quiet way of being supportive, and I find it really helpful. And one of the things that I remember from that first hospital experience, I think I was recording, and actually I remember the videos. I recorded an update to my YouTube channel, which at the time was like more of a blog style stream of consciousness kind of thing. And I think that was a real coping mechanism for me. And I was still, I think, trying to set my phone up against a water bottle, or I would never had a way to just set my phone up. And you came in with this like little phone stand, and you're like, here, use this, and then you bought me one, and it was like $6, and it was something I like never even considered having. And you were just like, you need one of these. Let me give you one. And it was just really like you gave me the space to process, and you were also there. And that is true for both, like all of the hospital experiences. You've been there, and it's been really fantastic.
Well,
for me.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Seriously though, I don't know where you learned that, but it's great.
I'll tell you the reality. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, tell me the reality.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So this is something that I call post-processing. I don't know what the real term is, but it's a combination of shock and autopilot. So that calm, collective gives you like the thing to put your phone on and gives you the space. That's shock and autopilot. The next week, I'm a mess. There's nothing. It's just absolute pity party over here, right? After a crisis. So during crisis, it works well. I use it to my benefit, right? And I'm really glad that you find comfort in it, because I don't think there's anything I could do about shock and autopilot. But yeah, it works well in these situations. And being there definitely works well in these situations too. And it's something that I've tried to fix over time, because there's only so many traumatic events that can happen in your life and in your family that you can kind of look away and work really hard to get over or to avoid, right? For example, someone really close to me was dealing with a major health issue, and I wanted to stay away from that, not because I don't love them or because I don't want to be supportive, but because I didn't possess the mental maturity to handle a situation like that. But with Uncle Tommy's cancer, I really wanted to make a change. Drove my butt all the way down to Florida for 3 months, right? To sort of help where I could, because I realized that just being there is helpful. Like, what if someone needs a pillow? What if someone needs a phone stand? What if someone needs coffee, right? Oh, no one in the group knows what's going on. Well, Jake has fingers. I can text everyone, right? More fingers than Tyree.
That's right.
Keep it in there.
It's really hard not to laugh at that. That is such a recent thing. That is that is really hard not to. It's true though. I mean, right? Like, so our stepdad recently lost a finger. Yeah.
Yep.
What was when I was diagnosed, like, what was that experience like for you? Like, other than putting your head in the sand, like, when did you start looking back on our lives as children and putting pieces together and connecting them to this? And how did you do that?
This is a great question. I did that on Tuesday.
This Tuesday?
Yeah, this Tuesday. So really specific, because I was thinking about this interview. I was like, okay, what are we going to talk about, right? I know as siblings, we could talk forever, but I started to connect pieces on Tuesday, and I came up with a thought. So I don't know if you've talked about this, but there's a lot of things in our childhood that were, for you, inexplicable. Because, and this is what I thought about, was no one looks at a bruised child and immediately thinks, oh my God, they have a rare genetic condition. And so our family operated the best that they could, given that we didn't know about vascular Ehlers-Danlos, or that you had it. And so, things happen with Child Protective Services, right? Just like one of your previous episodes, let's come in and look at the bruised child, right? Let's figure out who is beating this child. And so a lot of the, connecting the dots was no one knows, or no one knew why you had bruises, right? No one knew why you were sick a lot, right? No one knew all of these things. And so what happens? People make assumptions and point fingers. Very natural thing to do, right? So on Tuesday, I made all these connections. I was like, wow, Child Protective Services coming to our house and asking if I'm being beat because you have bruises or whatever, right? Along with everything else that happened. That's just a family trying to protect a kid. Doing it in the most damaging possible way. Right? You're beating my child. No, you're beating my child, right? And so, you're sick all the time. Well, obviously, the medicine is making you sick. Mm-hmm. Let me do the thing was done to protect you. I'm going to inject the medicine into the couch. Logical place to put it, the couch. So that's where I started to connect a lot of the childhood. Katie is not as thick-skinned as her brother. And so what are all the things that happen in our childhood that relate to that? Like you cutting your knee on the couch and a whole chunk of your knee goes away. Your ACL tearing and you having the surgery after that, and whatever complications happened from, I think, refilling coffee at 7-Eleven, right? Like, wow, what a thing to tear your ACL over, or what, I don't know what happened. But and then there are a lot of miraculous things that didn't happen. Your leg didn't fall off when you had the ACL surgery, right?
True.
Okay, kudos. Good job, body.
My leg.
You have your leg, right? Your lungs didn't explode when you played euphonium in marching band.
Yeah.
Right? Whew, bullet missed, you know? So there's a lot of things that have happened. Everyone handled it as best as they could, given their own knowledge about medicalness, which I think is the whole point of staying connected, is bringing awareness to as many people as possible that this is real. And if you've got someone in your life that has these physical features, it doesn't hurt to get tested. Maybe it will prevent family trauma if you just get tested, right? So anyway, that was my Tuesday.
That's a big Tuesday.
Yeah, it was like 30 minutes or so.
Yeah. Did you know, like when we were younger, could you tell that our bodies were different in that way? That something was wrong?
Yes, but no. So it manifested as symptoms. Katie's sick. Katie's short. Katie got cut. Katie's bruised. Katie's whiny. Blah, blah, blah. Right? It manifests as symptoms. And as a kid, you don't know. You're like, oh, my sister, like she's so needy. Oh my God, right? Why can't I just play with my Legos? Which every child sounds just like that. But as you get older and you start connecting dots, it manifests a different way, like a joke that they don't need to do XYZ because your veins are already on the surface, right? And then as an adult, it manifests in different ways. And now as an adult, it manifests as uber protector. I'm going to slap you in the face over text messaging because XYZ, Katie this, right? Just immediately. I'm going to go to bat immediately. Like, that's my sister, you know, don't mess with her. She's got thin skin.
It's really sweet though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. What do you tell people? Like, what did you tell people after I was diagnosed versus like now? Has that changed? Or did you not tell anybody?
Yeah, definitely. It went from, because think about it, it's a span of like 10 years or something. And so how long were you diagnosed ago?
2017. So 8 years? 6 years. I can do math. 6.
10. Okay, so
somewhere between 6 to 10 years ago.
Nobody really knows, but it's somewhere between 6 and 10 years.
but it's 6.
could also be 10. So what I told people before your diagnosis was nothing.
Right.
Nothing. Because you don't know anything. You're like, oh, my sister bruises. Like you say the symptoms, right? My sister bruises easily. My sister get cut easily.
But you would actually tell people that before I was diagnosed?
Yeah, of course. Because they would ask. They're like, how's your sister? I'm like, oh, I don't know. She's sick. But she gets sick a lot or whatever, those types of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How's your sister? Oh, I don't know. She's so tired all the time. Because you just say the symptom. But now what I say is even better. I've gotten really good at it because I didn't know what to say. And this is really in theme with putting your head in the sand. What I tell people now is that my sister has a genetic condition where her organs can explode. I've gotten really good at it. And everyone is like, oh my gosh. Right. And it works really well. And they're like, wow, what is that? I'm like, hook, line, and sinker. I got him. It's Vascular Ehlers-Danlos. And she's the director of the Vascular Ehlers-Danlos at the Marfan Foundation. And so it works really well as like a hook. And it works really well in emergencies too. Like my manager has been, and my boss at work has been great. He knows what you have, but it works really well as like, almost like a safe word. It's like, bam, my sister's organs exploded. I got to go. He's like, no problem. See you later. And it works great. I don't have to explain it. I don't have to say, oh, medical term, especially when I'm freaking out. Yeah. I could just bam, sister's organs exploded.
Did my diagnosis contribute to your decision not to have children?
Yes, sort of. So the decision not to have children, and I'll make a joke, because I have other things, right? I've got back problems, I've got varicose veins, I have depression, anxiety, right? So the joke I tell people is that our parents were cousins, and that's what's wrong with me.
You actually tell people that?
I tell people that. I say, they're like, oh, why do you have a headache? I'm like, I don't know. Like, my parents must have been cousins, because like my sister's got a genetic condition where her organs can explode. And I've got all these other problems. It's a joke, right? I don't actually think our parents are cousins.
No, they aren't. Just for the record, our parents are not cousins.
Do you know that for sure?
I'm fairly certain.
We'll have to ask Aunt Mo.
Yeah, I think Aunt Mo would be the
genealogy?
The genealogist.
Genealogist. Yeah. Yes. So, I don't want to have children. I love my life. My life is perfect. It's all about me, right? I'm joking, right? It's about my wife. It's about my mom. It's about my sister, right? My life is about my family, and I have infinitely more time than people with children. And you and I don't exactly have the best genetic genes. So why have kids? Why pass that on? The world's going to explode in 40 years anyway. So like what? They're going to live till 40 and then have to survive the apocalypse? Whatever. Forget it. Nah. I'd rather play Minecraft all night, watch YouTube all night, hang out with Melissa, my wife, all night, hang out with my family, travel whenever I want, kind of, except I have geese and chickens now, which make it really hard. It's an amalgamation of all these things.
Yeah. Even though it's not really possible for you to pass on what I have because you don't have it.
Nobody knows.
They know.
I don't know. Doctors and stuff, right? No, I'm sure we know what we know to the extent of how we know it and what we know.
Yeah.
Right. Because how did you get it?
Spontaneous.
Exactly. So what's to say my kid wouldn't have it? Could be spontaneous. Could be something we don't know. And by the way, I'm not throwing shade at any doctor out there. Like, I have so much respect for the doctors that I have respect for that I've encountered with you. Not the ones that suck, because they suck, but the ones that are great, they are worth holding on to.
Let's talk about some of those sucky experiences.
Okay, let's.
What stands out to you? And because you say that you have a lot of respect for the doctors that you respect that you've met. In my experiences, tell me about the others.
Okay, I want to first doubly acknowledge the good doctors. I won't name names, but you know who you are. Katie knows who you are. Y'all know who each other are too. So thank you. Now, the doctors that suck, they just don't listen. So I'll tell it like a story from my perspective. And this is a normal person without vascular Ehlers-Danlos. I've been tested. I'm negative, right? So I went to the doctor because I was having some problems. I had some issues with inertia. I couldn't really feel inertia, right? I was a little dizzy sometimes, had short-term memory problems, right? They're like, oh, I don't know what you have, but here's an antidepressant. Okay. that didn't fix it. That's not, I had water in my ears, right? Like whatever. So, and seasonal affect at the same time. But if you take that same mentality, the doctor's mentality was, here's a drug, get out of my room. I have 15 minutes with you. Next, take a ticker. I might as well just take the ticket at the deli counter and ask the deli person what's wrong with me. They'd give me some cured meats to solve my problems. But with somebody with vascular Ehlers-Danlos or any of the other named genetic disorders, conditions, right? Is it conditions?
Either.
Perfect. I'm going to get it both wrong. If you take that same mentality and apply it to somebody that's got a genetic condition, like you and the people that are around you, it's damaging. And that's stupid because you've shown up to hospitals with the damn pamphlet that says, this is what I have. And you know what doctors do? Ignore the shit out of you. Why do they do that? Here's brother anger, right? I'm going to slap them through text message. These motherfuckers need to look at your goddamn pamphlet, read the shit. Even the EMTs, read that fucking shit, because this is life or death. And if you do something wrong, my sister's going to get hurt. And then you know what's going to happen? Her brother's going to be really sad. So y'all motherfuckers need to read the damn pamphlet and listen. And don't try to kick her out of your waiting room because she's been there too many times or whatever. It makes it even worse or harder because you're a woman. And doctors don't treat women the same way that they treat men. So a woman with vascular Ehlers-Danlos shows up, they try to give her a drug and kick her out. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Read the goddamn pamphlet.
Read the pamphlet. That is some brotherly anger.
Yeah, I have a lot.
Yeah. You really hide it well in the emergency room. I remember there was a time I think it was that first TIA, that first really big one that it was in it was like 12 hours or something until I got into a hospital room. So we were in the ER. They knew I had a TIA. They had diagnosed it as a TIA. They knew I was at a higher risk of a stroke during that time, which is why they were admitting me. But I think I look back on that, I don't remember a blood pressure monitor or any kind of anything that would have notified them that something was going wrong in my room. And they didn't, it was like 6 hours that they didn't come and check on us.
Yeah, you're a young woman with a TIA, which is abnormal, but you'll be fine because you're normal.
I remember you going out to find somebody.
Of course. I'm going to clap down them hallways. Clap, clap, clap. Get in here.
It was a scary experience.
Yeah, definitely.
It was a really scary experience.
I think everything related to vascular Ehlers-Danlos is very scary.
Yeah.
I could probably say VEDS.
Yeah, you can say VEDS.
So
doesn't
say
matter.
the whole thing. Okay.
It's up to you. Whichever you feel more comfortable saying.
Okay.
What kind of, if there's I don't think that we've had a lot of, I don't know if we've had any siblings on the podcast. We've had a sibling on the show that came on after their sibling has passed.
Oh,
but I don't know if we've had a sibling perspective on the show of a living person with VEDS. If there's a sibling of somebody with VEDS listening to the podcast, is there anything about your experience or the tools that you've used to cope with this experience or anything, any advice you would give them, anything you would tell them, anything?
That's a hard one. Okay. It's a big answer. It's a lot. Everything just came to my brain all at once, right? So talking to siblings of individuals with VEDS or Marfan or Ehlers-Dietz. Loeys-Dietz.
Loeys-Dietz.
Yeah, Loeys-Dietz. Okay. I got it. I'm getting it.
Good job.
So talking to the siblings of people who are affected by this, the first thing I would say is look at your family's culture. Because if your family's culture is ignore and be ignorant and make jokes and all that stuff, and I'm not saying everyone in our family has this culture. So mom, I love you. This isn't you. Okay. This is other people in the family and friends. Mm-hmm. And just be critical if you don't know that your sibling has an issue, right? You're here because you've heard the symptoms, bruising, skinny nose, thin skin. Then convince the person that you think may have a problem to get tested. Advice number 1, get tested. I think if you don't have insurance, it's like $100 or something. It should be freaking free. So that's one. Second thing is when someone is in a situation where they are injured in some way, likely they're mentally exhausted. So show up and be there. Yell at nurses. Nurses, I love you too. But some nurses, you need to be yelled at. Yell at nurses and yell at doctors to say, hey, pay attention. Here's the pamphlet. Read the pamphlet. Because likely the person that's in bed is exhausted and trying to heal. And so be there for your sibling. And then the next part is get as much time as you can with that sibling. That's something I'm really bad at because I'm still head in the sand. Katie's smiling because she knows even though we live close by-ish, we don't get a ton of time together. And so my advice is don't do what I do. I'm still like, oh yeah, I need to work. Obviously, all my problems go away if I go to work. I won't drive an hour, because get over it. Spend time with your sibling. Even if you hate them, like just go spend time with them, because after something happens, it's life-changing. The next thing that happens is even more life-changing. Maybe even the last life-changing thing. So go spend time with your sibling, and then, team up against your mom in Hawaii.
That one is totally relevant to everybody. That last comment there.
Absolutely totally relevant, right? Because so you and I were told as kids, because we came from a divorced household, we were told multiple times, your parents aren't going to be around forever. You better become friends. And so we did. And then you get diagnosed with VEDS, and the reality may look different. So we're like really good friends now, and we laugh and we have fun and everything. Sorry for the dog. But what they said might not be true. And so we spent all this time becoming really good friends. It's just going to hurt more. But it doesn't devalue the time that you spend with that person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think for me, there was this interesting experience on my end over the last few years where it's like, I knew once I found out about the diagnosis, I think I soaked up a lot of information, probably a lot faster than others in the family who did not cope in the same way that I did, right? Like if you have an ostrich in the sand coping mechanism, or if you have everything's going to be okay, I believe, kind of coping mechanism, then it's not something that you would immediately go and look up all the information and the bad stats and understand, right? But like that's my coping mechanism, is to get as much information as I can. So early on, I had a pretty good understanding of the bad things that could happen to me. And it felt really isolating in some ways, not knowing how to communicate with family members who perhaps didn't want to know that information early on, or still maybe don't. And I think that over the last few years, there's been more of, from my perspective, a lot of our family members getting it, or at least like there's these moments, like for instance, the spleen rupture. People in the family knew that this could happen. And then the spleen ruptured, and there was a lot of, well, what happened? Mm-hmm. Had you come to terms with that possibility before that moment? Like, to me, it seems like a lot of moments have just led up to a greater understanding in our family.
I would say to react to your earlier statement, the truth is hard, especially when someone's shoving it in your face, because they're super passionate about it. And you and I both obsess over things at various points in our lives. And so it's hard, definitely hard. I think everyone's a little bit ostrich. And so definitely really hard. Someone that you love tells you they have this genetic condition. So I don't blame you for trying to tell everyone everything all at once, right? Not at all.
Yeah. And I don't blame people for putting their head in the sand either.
Exactly. Yeah. It goes back to like, everyone's going to do what they can do, right? To answer your other question, I don't think I'll ever accept the truth that my sister has vascular Ehlers-Danlos. And that means that things will happen to her. Never accept it. Absolutely not. Nope. Won't do it. Even if something dramatic happens next time, I'm going to know, okay, it's VEDS, tissue box full of wet tissues. But at the same time, I'm going to say, no, she'll get through it, right? It'll be fine. She'll just keep living. It's fine. Like she'll have surgery. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And that's the ultimate denial. That's sibling denial right there. Like I can't accept it. I won't.
Yeah. I love you.
Love you too. Go take your Miralax, please.
No, seriously, I love you.
I love you too. Oh, of course.
I was really surprised when you wanted to come on. You like kind of mentioned like you started listening to the podcast, mm-hmm. which is a totally new experience for me. having you listen to the podcast.
Because now you get feedback.
Yeah, I get feedback. But also, like, the feedback is just the brotherly feedback. And I really appreciate it. But also the just amount that you've started, I guess, showing up for the more day-to-day stuff, you know? Like, you always show up for the emergencies. Always. Mm-hmm. And it, like, when you were there for the emergencies, like, I know that you get it and you're supportive, and like, I feel like I've got someone on my side, and it makes the biggest difference in the world in those emergencies. It was a really different experience, a special experience when you started listening to the podcast. And it's just like, it kind of caught me off guard, because for so long you were hesitant about me mentioning that I had a brother. Mm-hmm. You're hesitant about existing,
yes,
at all in that periphery.
And the internet.
And the internet, for sure, which still exists. Mm-hmm. But then there was this, like, I didn't realize you were listening to them. Like, we were on a call or something, and you said, oh yeah, that when you mentioned that in the podcast or something. And I was like, what? You listened to that? Like, I had no idea that you had been listening. And then now I feel like I know that you listen to a lot of them. And it's really special to me. And I don't know where I was going with this, honestly, other than like that evolution. I'm just so caught up in that feeling of, it's been so different and awesome to have you be there. And you came to a walk and you met other people with VEDS for the first time. What was that like?
Oh, yeah. God. Oh, this is a feelings question. So why are you asking feelings questions? Okay. So we previously have established that you were diagnosed between 6 and 10 years ago. And it's taken me between 6 and 10 years to ostrich out and into the day-to-day, because, you know, it's easier, I think, for me to be there in emergencies if my battery is full. Yeah. My battery gets depleted when I'm reminded of things that I can't accept, like you have VEDS. So I've had to learn how to alternate energy sources to charge my battery so that I can be there for the day-to-day. And what I found is that being there for the day-to-day isn't so bad. It's, you know, it's still like, I listen to the podcast. I'm like, oh, you know, I'm so proud of my sister. She's got this wonderful podcast. It's kind of sad. Oh, that was a sad story. That relates to some of the situations that we went through as kids. That's also sad. Okay, well, now let me go eat a cookie. You know, okay, well, my battery's full. Now I had a cookie. Right. So I've gained weight thanks to being here day to day. You're welcome. But showing up for the walks was also really great too, because you sort of know you're not in this alone. We're not in this alone as siblings. Our family's not in this alone as a family of people that has someone in their family that's affected by VEDS. And that's empowering too. And so I now can avoid the cookie because I know that there's a team of good doctors. You know who you are and you know who each other are. And Katie knows who you are, that are there trying to make things better and advocating for their patients.
That's great.
Was that the answer you were looking for?
Any answer would have been fine.
It was the quiz.
But it almost kind of sidestepped the question a little bit.
In what way?
Almost. So you answered, I mean, kind of like how good it is that you know that I have a community. But you didn't answer what it felt like for you meeting other people with VEDS.
No, I did.
Yeah? Does that count?
Oh, it totally counts.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I feel. When I go to the walk, I'm like, oh, okay, take a deep breath. I need to show up because this is a thing It's comparable to an emergency in terms of the level of energy commitment. Because I said it is facing something you can't accept. And it takes energy to deny things that are real. So showing up takes the same amount of energy from my battery, which needs to be replenished by a cookie.
Got it.
Right? But then you replace the cookie with the good doctors. And now I can lose weight again. Right?
This is going to be an editing nightmare, and I love it.
Just don't edit it. I mean, honestly, the people are here for me.
Yeah, for real. I mean, this is now staying connected with Jacob Frederick.
There we go. Yep. Let me flip this then, right?
Okay. Yeah, flip it.
What do you want siblings of people with a connective tissue disorder to know? Let me actually elaborate on this. Let me elaborate on this one a lot, okay? You are a fantastic person. You took your diagnosis and you obsessed over it, learned as much as you could, started a career in it. You're faced with the reality of you every day. So how does this affect you? Because I can't. I'm not strong enough. But obviously you're so much stronger than me that you could do this every day and still deal with your own emergencies and still talk to flight attendants when need be that you have this genetic condition. So like what's it like for you to work in this field and go to walks like that? Like be at the tent for walks?
It's incredible. There aren't any other experiences quite like it. It's a very unique experience. It's like meeting other people that you know have experienced similar things as you, you know, and maybe experience that similar, like looking in the dark for answers for a long time or not having resources for a long time. And the energy that comes together in those spaces, whether it's at a walk or a conference or an in-person get-together for whatever, like the energy there is so, for me, like very unique because you have a ton of people with shared experience coming together. And there is this like sense of like, the hardest thing for me is knowing that that might be the last time I see any of the people that I meet. Like that has been, and I don't know that I don't ostrich in the sand it. Like I just kind of embrace that possibility and also embrace the possibility that that's not going to happen, that it might not be. And I try to just be in the positive experience that I'm in at that moment rather than dwell in the, what if this is the last time I see that person? Like I very rarely ever think of that anymore. At the beginning, it was like that. And that has happened a few times, right? Like I remember meeting Crystal Nichols, who I'd interviewed on the podcast early on. I met her in Nashville in, I think it was August of 2019. And she was like my size. And it was just like, I don't know, we just became like instant. There's an instant connection there, which there is in a lot of most people I meet in the community. There's like an instant connection with almost, I think everybody that I've met actually. But we like really hit it off. And then a few months later, she was gone. And within that same like 3-month period, my friend Chris Van Tatenhoven, I think is how you say his last name, he passed away. And John DeMasi passed away. So in that, I think it was like, it might have only been a 2-month, 1 month. It was a very short period of time. It was like bam, bam, bam. And then pandemic.
And it was just like, wow, I might never see, when the pandemic hit, it was like, oh, I might never see any of my friends with VEDS again. And that was like a really, really like tough kind of no, like put that aside. It's, you get to see them online all the time. Let's do bingo, you know? Like, so, I mean, it's a really, to me, it's a really beautiful experience. And one of the really beautiful things about the experience of everybody coming together too is that I know that in the past, there weren't all these opportunities to get together with as large of a community, including people with Marfan and LDS now, and that like shared experience. And each condition's a little different, but there's so much shared experience there that when you see people come together and embrace that, and especially knowing that there wasn't always the opportunity to do so in as big of a scale, it like almost makes me cry for different reasons because it's so pretty. Like it's magical. So that's what it's like for me.
Your glasses should be rose tinted.
Why?
That's an old saying. You look at the world through rose tinted glasses. It means everything is pretty.
Yeah.
I'm really glad I asked that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you and I have way different perspectives. I have a hard time living in the moment. And so I'm always thinking about, I'm overanalyzing, right? Like, oh, is this the last time I'm going to see this person? Right. That's really hard for me to get past that one.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the things that VEDS brings to life is just this need to live in the moment. There's no way around it. I mean, even when I was in the hospital with my spleen rupture, there was an immense amount of like peace that I felt that was inexplicable. It was just like I knew in that moment, like I might not make it, but I might. But also like I'm at peace with whichever happens. And it's just this like really weird experience that can happen. But I think a lot of it is like you early on in diagnosis, I had to figure out how to live in the moment. I do a lot of past over analyzation. So where I might not think about like, is this the last time that I'm going to see this person? I think of past experiences and I'm like, is there anything I said that could have made this person upset? Or is there anything that I did that I should have done a little differently? Like I overanalyze even timing with things, right? Like did I get up to go to the bathroom at the wrong time and then make somebody think that I was upset? Or like I just overanalyze my own actions, which probably comes a little bit from our childhood, to be honest.
We
has nothing
had
to do with butter, but
we had to be specific a lot.
We did. Yeah.
Yeah. You're so much stronger than me. I don't even know how you're so strong. You're just so strong. It's incredible. I'm incredibly impressed. Continue to be just absolutely floored by you.
Make me cry.
I'm crying. I've been crying this whole episode.
I know.
Catch up.
That made me cry though, because I don't see that. I mean, I don't see that a lot. So like when you say it, it means a lot because what I imagine that people see is this fragile person.
No. Okay, so let me tell you the story of you, okay? So Katie was a whiny kid with lots of problems. Okay? Let's be real. She kept being whiny. She was very whiny. So much whining. Mom, I love you. Your daughter whined a lot. You know this too. I mean, for good reason. Like you had a lot to complain about. You know, you went through high school and college, right? And lots of different, you know, normal things like debt or gender fluidity, exploring your sexuality, very normal for people to do, not normal for our society to unaccept it or not accept it.
Yeah.
And then I think when you diagnosed it, it made a big change. Like you were whiny Katie with like exploring herself and the world, right? And then you're diagnosing it, it's like a switch. you definitely went through a period where you were grieving. I think you were telling people about your grief. Like you were going through, you're therapizing yourself, right? But I mean, the last 6 to 10 years, nobody will know exactly the amount of years, has just been so much strength from you. And, my wife and I talk about it a lot. We're like, you're like, holy crap, Katie's changed so much. She's grown so much. She's so strong. She's got her shit together, right? And you might not think this because you're not a scientist, but by God, you've got your shit together, girl. For what you got going on in your life, holy shit. It's like, I don't know. I'm ashamed that I don't have my shit as together as you have your shit together.
I look at it the totally opposite way. Because you have this like full-time job and you support you and your wife, and like I'm at this point where I'm like, I don't have a full-time job. Like I'm making like a big mid-30s career change to try to be mostly self-employed.
Sillybug Studios. It's Sillybug Studios, Katie, plug it. You do fantastic colored pencil drawings. Okay. Yeah, you can give a gift of a fantastic custom, personalized, hand-drawn color pencil drawing of a subject, right? Go to sillybugstudios.com. Give the gift this Christmas to someone that you love.
Thanks, Jake.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Well, I think we were just like, did you just do this? Oh gosh, I wish people could see that.
Cute.
he did the thing with his hands and his face. Cute. You're welcome. No, thank you. I mean, thank you for being there and for everything. For everything.
I'll put it this way too. Just so I really want to drive this one home. Okay. I do easy. I go to work. I avoid the world. I continue to work. Right? It's easy. I make money. I pay bills. Easy. The only thing really wrong with me is that my great grandmother fed me butter when I was an infant, or tried to, right? That's it. I don't have VEDS. I don't have another big problem that makes me face my mortality every day. When I look at the future, I don't have to face my own mortality in any span of recency. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll live another 50 years, maybe. I don't know. I'm like 20 something. So I'll live another 50 years, maybe, if I'm healthy and exercise. So thank you, good doctors, for allowing me to replace the cookie to re-energize myself with your good doctorness. And this may be too direct, but in a situation like you have, you're constantly facing your own mortality. But you still got your shit together. You're starting a business. You're pursuing a passion. I don't know, you've got a husband. Congratulations, right? 6 to 10 years ago, I don't know how long you've all been married. But, you're still making ends meet. You're still passionate about stuff. You're still doing stuff. You didn't give up. So what I'm doing is easy. I'm doing a status quo. What you're doing is exceptional. It's different from most other people.
I think that expands to everybody living with VEDS, really. It's like this, a lot of people will say, like, you're so inspirational. I don't know how you do what you do, but there's no choice, right? Like for all of us with VEDS or Marfan or LDS, like there's no choice. Like what other option is there? You must continue to find things that you love and enjoy. And I think at the beginning of the diagnosis period, it's really, and the beginning is a loose term. I define the beginning of the diagnosis period as like the first 3 to 5 years of knowing about your diagnosis, because it takes a long time to deal with that mortality piece. But you have to find things you enjoy.
Yep. So from your perspective, you're doing the status quo because you have to, right? Mm-hmm. But I think Another way to look at it is you don't. You could become depressed and live in mom's basement and play computer games all day. But no, you take your Miralax, you do your exercise, you pursue a passion, you start a business. Don't belittle your accomplishments based off of the fact that you think that you have to do this, because you don't, but you are. And that's exceptional.
For the record, I hate Miralax. I just want to put that out on the record. I take it because I have to. But if they would ever decide to make it taste better or make it into a pill where you drink it with your 8 ounces of water, like you just chase it, like you chase the pill with it, I don't know that it would work as well. But if they ever did that, I would be the first person, because I can't stand that stuff.
You know what they'd do instead is make it cherry flavor. All good drugs are cherry flavor.
Well, this has been a really enlightening conversation.
Right? Like, how many times as a kid, I think the only thing that we had as a drug as a kid that wasn't cherry flavor was, what was that drug that you use for bronchitis?
Was it Robitussin?
No. It's prescription.
I remember something that tasted good.
It was sweet. Mom knows what it is. It came in a brown bottle and you ate it with a spoon.
Yeah. I thought it was Robitussin, but maybe it's not.
It's
we're thinking of the same thing.
Yep. That's the only, I don't know what they did. I mean, they need to pair up with other companies that make drugs and not make them cherry flavor.
Make the Miralax taste like that. You know what I think it is that most people who don't have one of these conditions, I think a lot of people don't have to take Miralax every single day of their life. And so for a lot of people, it's like an as needed thing. And it's like, oh, you're constipated, take some Miralax, and like you might only have to do that once every month or two or something like that. But for somebody who has to take that every freaking night, it's like, please do something different. Design the bottle so that all the powder doesn't fall out when you're putting it into it's just not as much care as there needs to be and I've contacted Miralax to suggest some of these things. I actually had a conversation with the Miralax rep like a year ago.
Okay, so going back to
give suggestions.
Going back to what we just said, you don't have to do that, right? You don't have to make Miralax better for everyone, but you are.
It didn't go far.
It doesn't matter. You made 99.
I tried
99 infinite more try than other people.
Thanks, Jake. I feel like we could go on forever.
We could.
Any final thoughts for the listeners before you leave?
I love you, Katie.
I love you too, Jake. Thanks for coming on the show.
Of course. Happy to do it. It's been amazing.
I'm looking forward to a potential part 2.
Even if we just have a phone call.
Right. I love you so much. And I feel like I came out of this episode with a deeper understanding of your experience in this. And I really appreciate you opening up about it.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Thanks for listening to this episode featuring my brother, Jacob Frederick. And thank you, Jake, for plugging Sillybug Studios in the episode. I've put a link to my website in the episode show notes if a pet portrait is something you're interested in. There are also lots of helpful links in the episode show notes if you're ready to meet others, get involved, or just need support. There's also a link for the VEDS Collaborative Natural History Study, a research study led by Dr. Shireen Shalhoub, open to people with VEDS, Marfan, Loeys-Dietz, and similar connective tissue conditions. On the next episode, we'll be talking to Taborski McClellan about his experience with Marfan syndrome. If you like this show, be sure to share it on social media, and you can also support the production of this podcast by joining my Patreon. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.